We've just been talking about how reproductive health care has increasingly become a hot button topic for some companies, and we're now starting to see more and more of them offer fertility benefits to their employees. We've all heard about the reputation of the tech world and their employment perks, the snacks, the on-site haircuts, free oil changes for your car. But with the great resignation in full swing, it's become hard for companies to hang on to their people. And so now we're seeing egg freezing, IVF, and others emerging as a whole new category of benefits up for grabs. Jake Ward has the story from California.
As he settled into a new job, Matt Kelly and his wife were struggling to have a second child.
My wife and I, our challenges were never specifically with having or getting pregnant. It was with keeping the baby through the pregnancy. My wife and I endured through several miscarriages.
But his employer, Verkada, like many tech companies, offers fertility benefits that reimburse employees for the cost of adoption, IVF, and other procedures.
I think about somebody in a sales position in, say, the 1950s at a major company who would keep this entirely private, would be suffering miscarriage after miscarriage with their partner. When you think about people in your role, 50 years ago, I mean, what a different world that must have been.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's one of those things where I think, in general, companies are becoming more empathetic to their employees.
In a way, they have to be. Analysts predict that 20% more Americans will quit their jobs this year, and tech workers are famously difficult to keep around.
There is very often a criticism of companies for just treating diversity and inclusion as a numbers game and trying to get people through the door. So I think this is a good example of companies and HR departments trying to think beyond that.
I had jumped to a couple companies more than I had liked in the last year and a half.
For Haley Johnson, Verkada's fertility benefits offered her and her wife a reason to stay.
It's been a no-brainer that I want to be here as long as I can and grow with the company.
It's a pretty cutting-edge idea, a company paying for its employees' efforts to have kids.
Is there anybody you've had to explain this to who's been like, what? They do what? Really? They pay for that?
Yeah, my parents, I think they had that sense of relief just like I did. When I told them, they were like, they're just in a bit of a shock of, I didn't know this was a thing that could be a benefit.
The women that I speak to that are taking advantage of this, I think it makes them feel valued. It makes them feel that their employer is committed to them over the long term.
Why do you think it's worth it to a company like this to pay for this sort of benefit?
Verkada isn't focused on churning and burning me, right?
Which is a common thing in Silicon Valley.
It absolutely is.
Now, Kelly's benefit seems to have done its job.
I'm very grateful because, actually, my wife currently, we're pregnant with twins.
It used to be that on top of big salaries, dorm room entertainment, free snacks, some beer was enough to draw a young person into a company.
I love the fact that in our industry we're able to play ping pong, right? But by all means, this is something that impacts a person's life for generations to come.
Fertility benefits may be a sign that the industry and its workforce are growing up.
Boy, Jake, we are really rewriting the way that employers interact with their employees here, right? That traditional tension between work and family. So how does this play out then? I mean, if employers are going to be a heck of a lot more accepting, encouraging of families, then that might make things a little bit easier for women in the workplace. What are your thoughts and what are you hearing?
That's absolutely right, Tom. I mean, it's a really interesting question. I mean, if you think back to the 1950s and the first few decades in which women were in any way able to come into the workforce, there was this sort of devil's bargain where they had to trade their best years for starting a family for the chance to be in the workplace. That was a terrible thing across the industry. And yet we're now in this weird place where, because tech talent is so scarce, these companies are creating this incentive that just turns it all on its head. People are incentivized to stay at a particular company and incentivized to be able to have a family. Now, of course, it's important to note here, Tom, that all of this comes as the United States remains one of the few developed nations in the world to not at all offer federal paid family leave. But the fact that the private sector is stepping in here with this benefit is a really amazing sign of the times, Tom.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.